The great law of peace is the constitution of the Iroquois nations. I am Dekanawidah, and with the Five Nations Confederate Lords I plant the tree of great peace. Roots spread from the tree of the great peace, symbolizing peace and strength. If any nation obeys the laws of the great peace, they may trace the roots to the tree. We place an eagle at the top of the tree to warn of approaching danger. The Confederate Lords watch over the council fire and ensure the great peace, the great law of peace. 1. I am Dekanawidah, and with the Five Nations Confederate Lords I plant the tree of great peace. I plant it in your territory, Adodaro, and the Onondaga Nation, in the territory of you who are Firekeepers. I name the tree of the great long leaves. Under the shade of this tree of the great peace, we spread the soft white feathery down of the globe, thistle as seats for you, Adodaro, and your cousin Lords. We place you upon those seats, spread soft with the feathery down of the globe, thistle, there beneath the shade of the spreading branches of the tree of peace. There shall you sit and watch the council fire of the Confederacy of the Five Nations, and all the affairs of the Five Nations shall be transacted at this place before you, Adodaro, and your cousin Lords, by the Confederate Lords of the Five Nations. 1. Roots have spread out from the tree of the great peace, one to the north, one to the east, one to the south, and one to the west. The name of these roots is the great white roots, and their nature is peace and strength. If any man or any nation outside the Five Nations shall obey the laws of the great peace and make known their disposition to the Lords of the Confederacy, they may trace the roots to the tree, and if their minds are clean and they are obedient and promise to obey the wishes of the Confederate Council, they shall be welcomed to take shelter beneath the tree of the long leaves. We place at the top of the tree of the long leaves an eagle who is able to see afar. If he sees in the distance any evil approaching or any danger threatening, he will at once warn the people of the Confederacy. 1. To you, Adodaro, the Onondaga cousin Lords, I and the other Confederate Lords have entrusted the caretaking and the watching of the Five Nations Council fire. When there is any business to be transacted, and the Confederate Council is not in session, a messenger shall be dispatched either to Adodaro, Hononweritan, or Skanawati, Firekeepers, or to their war chiefs with a full statement of the case desired to be considered. Then shall Adodaro call his cousin, associate lords together, and consider whether or not the case is of sufficient importance to demand the attention of the Confederate Council. If so, Adodaro shall dispatch messengers to summon all the Confederate Lords to assemble beneath the tree of the long leaves. When the Lords are assembled, the council fire shall be kindled, but not with chestnut wood, and Adodaro shall formally open the council. Note: chestnut wood throws out sparks in burning, thereby creating a disturbance in the council. Then shall Adodaro and his cousin Lords, the Firekeepers, announce the subject for discussion. The smoke of the Confederate Council fire shall ever ascend and pierce the sky, so that other nations who may be allies may see the council fire of the great peace. Adodaro and his cousin Lords are entrusted with the keeping of the council fire. 1. You, Adodaro, and your 13 cousin Lords shall faithfully keep the space about the council fire clean, and you shall allow neither dust nor dirt to accumulate. I lay a long wing before you as a broom. As a weapon against a crawling creature, I lay a staff with you so that you may thrust it away from the council fire. If you fail to cast it out, then call the rest of the United Lords to your aid. 1. The Council of the Mohawk shall be divided into 3 parties as follows. Tekarihokan, Ionwatha, and Shadekariwad are the first party. Sharonhuana, Deonhegwan, and Ogrengregawa are the second party, and Dehenakrina, Agstavan Sorentha, and Shosko Harawana are the third party. The third party is to listen only to the discussion of the first and second parties, and if an error is made or the proceeding is irregular, they are to call attention to it. And when the case is right and properly decided by the 2 parties, they shall confirm the decision of the 2 parties and refer the case to the Seneca Lords for their decision. When the Seneca Lords have decided in accord with the Mohawk Lords, the case or question shall be referred to the Cayuga and Oneida Lords on the opposite side of the House. 1. I, Dekanawidah, appoint the Mohawk Lords the heads and the leaders of the Five Nations Confederacy. The Mohawk Lords are the foundation of the Great Peace, and it shall therefore be against the great binding law to pass measures in the Confederate Council after the Mohawk Lords have protested against them. No council of the Confederate Lords shall be legal unless all the Mohawk Lords are present. 1. Whenever the Confederate Lords shall assemble for the purpose of holding a council, the Onondaga Lords shall open it by expressing their gratitude to their cousin lords and greeting them, and they shall make an address and offer thanks to the earth where men dwell, to the streams of water, the pools, the springs and the lakes, to the maize and the fruits, to the medicinal herbs and trees, to the forest trees for their usefulness, to the animals that serve as food and give their pelts for clothing, to the great winds and the lesser winds, to the thunderers, to the sun, the mighty warrior, to the moon, to the messengers of the Creator who reveal his wishes, and to the great Creator who dwells in the heavens above, who gives all the things useful to men, and who is the source and the ruler of health and life. Then shall the Onondaga Lords declare the council open. The council shall not sit after darkness has set in. 1. The Firekeepers shall formally open and close all councils of the Confederate Lords, and they shall pass upon all matters deliberated upon by the two sides and render their decision. Every Onondaga Lord or his deputy must be present at every Confederate council and must agree with the majority without unwarrantable dissent, so that a unanimous decision may be rendered. If Adadaho or any of his cousin lords are absent from a Confederate council, any other firekeeper may open and close the council, but the firekeepers present may not give any decisions unless the matter is of small importance. 1. All the business of the Five Nations Confederate Council shall be conducted by the two combined bodies of Confederate Lords. First, the question shall be passed upon by the Mohawk and Seneca Lords, then it shall be discussed and passed by the Oneida and Cayuga Lords. Their decisions shall then be referred to the Onondaga Lords, Firekeepers, for final judgment. The same process shall obtain when a question is brought before the council by an individual or a war chief. 1. In all cases, the procedure must be as follows. When the Mohawk and Seneca Lords have unanimously agreed upon a question, they shall report their decision to the Cayuga and Oneida Lords, who shall deliberate upon the question and report a unanimous decision to the Mohawk Lords. The Mohawk Lords will then report the standing of the case to the Firekeepers, who shall render a decision as they see fit in case of a disagreement by the two bodies, or confirm the decisions of the two bodies if they are identical. The Firekeepers shall then report their decision to the Mohawk Lords, who shall announce it to the open council. 1. If through any misunderstanding or obstinacy on the part of the Firekeepers they render a decision at variance with that of the two sides shall reconsider the matter, and if their decisions are jointly the same as before, they shall report to the Firekeepers, who are then compelled to confirm their joint decision. 1. When a case comes before the Onondaga Lords, Firekeepers, for discussion and dection, Adodaro shall introduce the matter to his Comrade Lords, who shall then discuss it in their two bodies. Every Onondaga Lord except Hononwiaton shall deliberate, and he shall listen only. When a unanimous decision shall have been reached by the two bodies of Firekeepers, Adodaro shall notify Hononwiaton of the fact when he shall confirm it. He shall refuse to confirm a decision if it is not unanimously agreed upon by both sides of the Firekeepers. 1. No lord shall ask a question of the body of Confederate Lords when they are discussing a case, question, or proposition. He may only deliberate in a low tone with the separate body of which he is a member. 1. When the Council of the Five Nation Lords shall convene, they shall appoint a speaker for the day. He shall be a lord of either the Mohawk, Onondaga, or Seneca nation. The next day the council shall appoint another speaker, but the first speaker may be reappointed if there is no objection, but a speaker's term shall not be regarded more than for the day. 1. No individual or foreign nation interested in a case, question or proposition shall have any voice in the Confederate Council except to answer a question put to him or them by the Speaker for the Lords. 1. If the conditions which shall arise at any future time call for an addition to or change of this law, the case shall be carefully considered. And if a new beam seems necessary or beneficial, the proposed change shall be voted upon, and if adopted, it shall be called added to the rafters. Rights, duties and qualifications of Lords 1. A bunch of a certain number of shell, wampum strings, each 2 spans in length, shall be given to each of the female families in which the lordship titles are vested. The right of bestowing the title shall be hereditary in the family of the females legally possessing the bunch of shell strings, and the strings shall be the token that the females of the family have the proprietary right to the lordship title for all time to come, subject to certain restrictions hereinafter mentioned. 1. If any Confederate Lord neglects or refuses to attend the Confederate Council, the other lords of the nation of which he is a member shall require their war chief to request the female sponsors of the lord so guilty of defection to demand his attendance of the council. If he refuses, the women holding the title shall immediately select another candidate for the title. No lord shall be asked more than once to attend the Confederate Council. 1. If at any time it shall be manifest that a Confederate Lord has not in mind the welfare of the people or disobeys the rules of this great law, the men or women of the Confederacy, or both jointly, shall come to the council and upbraid the erring Lord through his war chief. If the complaint of the people through the war chief is not heeded the first time, it shall be uttered again, and then, if no attention is given, a third complaint, and warning shall be given. If the Lord is contumacious, the matter shall go to the council of war chiefs. The war chiefs shall then divest the erring Lord of his title by order of the women in whom the titleship is vested. When the Lord is deposed, the women shall notify the Confederate Lords through their war chief, and the Confederate Lords shall sanction the act. The women will then select another of their sons as a candidate, and the Lords shall elect him. Then shall the chosen one be installed by the installation ceremony. When a lord is to be deposed, his war chief shall address him as follows. So you disregard and set at naught the warnings of your women relatives. So you fling the warnings over your shoulder to cast them behind you. Behold the brightness of the sun, and in the brightness of the sun's light I depose you of your title and remove the sacred emblem of your lordship title. I remove from your brow the deer's antlers, which was the emblem of your position and token of your nobility. I now depose you and return the antlers to the women whose heritage they are. The war chief shall now address the women of the deposed lord and say, Mothers, as I have now deposed your lord, I now return to you the emblem and the title of lordship, therefore repossess them. Again addressing himself to the deposed lord, he shall say, As I have now deposed and discharged you, so you are now no longer lord. You shall now go your way alone. The rest of the people of the Confederacy will not go with you, for we know not the kind of mind that possesses you. As the Creator has nothing to do with wrong, so he will not come to rescue you from the precipice of destruction in which you have cast yourself. You shall never be restored to the position which you once occupied. Then shall the war chief address himself to the lords of the nation to which the deposed lord belongs, and say, Know you, my lords, that I have taken the deer's antlers from the brow of the emblem of his position and token of his greatness. The lords of the Confederacy shall then have no other alternative than to sanction the discharge of the offending lord. 1. If a lord of the Confederacy of the Five Nations should commit murder, the other lords of the nation shall assemble at the place where the corpse lies and prepare to depose the criminal lord. If it is impossible to meet at the scene of the crime, the lords shall discuss the matter at the next council of their nation and request their war chief to depose the lord guilty of crime, to bury his women relatives, and to transfer the lordship title to a sister family. The war chief shall address the lord guilty of murder and say, So you, giving his name, did kill, naming the slain man, with your own hands. You have committed a grave sin in the eyes of the Creator. Behold the bright light of the sun, and in the brightness of the sun's light I depose you of your title and remove the horns, the sacred emblems of your lordship title. I remove from your brow the deer's antlers, which was the emblem of your position and token of your nobility. I now depose you and expel you, and you shall depart at once from the territory of the Five Nations Confederacy and never more return again. We, the Five Nations Confederacy, moreover, bury your women relatives because the ancient lordship title was never intended to have any union with bloodshed. Henceforth it shall not be their heritage. By the evil deed that you have done, they have forfeited it forever. The war chief shall then hand the title to a sister family, and he shall address it and say, "Our mothers, listen attentively while I address you on a solemn and important subject. I hereby transfer to you an ancient lordship title, for a great calamity has befallen it in the hands of the family of a former lord. We trust that you, our mothers, will always guard it, and that you will warn your lord always to be dutiful and to advise his people to ever live in love, peace and harmony, that a great calamity may never happen again." 1. Certain physical defects in a Confederate Lord make him ineligible to sit in the Confederate Council. Such defects are infancy, idiocy, blindness, deafness, dumbness, and impotency. When a Confederate Lord is restricted by any of these conditions, a deputy shall be appointed by his sponsors to act for him. But in case of extreme necessity, the restricted Lord may exercise his rights. 1. If a Confederate Lord desires to resign his title, he shall notify the Lords of the nation of which he is a member of his intention. If his coactive Lords refuse to accept his resignation, he may not resign his title. A Lord in proposing to resign may recommend any proper candidate, which recommendation shall be received by the Lords, but unless confirmed and nominated by the women who hold the title, the candidate so named shall not be considered. 1. Any Lord of the Five Nations Confederacy may construct shell strings or wampum belts of any size or length as pledges or records of matters of national or international importance. When it is necessary to dispatch a shell string by a war chief or other messenger as the token of a summons, the messenger shall recite the contents of the string to the party to whom it is sent. That party shall repeat the message and return the shell string, and if there has been a summons, he shall make ready for the journey. Any of the people of the Five Nations may use shells or wampum as the record of a pledge, contract, or an agreement entered into, and the same shall be binding as soon as shell strings shall have been exchanged by both parties. 1. The Lords of the Confederacy of the Five Nations shall be mentors of the people for all time. The thickness of their skin shall be 7 spans, which is to say that they shall be proof against anger, offensive actions, and criticism. Their hearts shall be full of peace and goodwill, and their minds filled with a yearning for the welfare of the people of the Confederacy. With endless patience they shall carry out their duty, and their firmness shall be tempered with a tenderness for their people. Neither anger nor fury shall find lodgment in their minds, and all their words and actions shall be marked by calm deliberation. 1. If a Lord of the Confederacy should seek to establish any authority independent of the jurisdiction of the Confederacy of the Great Peace, which is the Five Nations, he shall be warned 3 times in open council, first by the women relatives, second by the men relatives, and finally by the Lords of the Confederacy of the nation to which he belongs. If the offending Lord is still obdurate, he shall be dismissed by the war chief of his nation for refusing to conform to the laws of the Great Peace. His nation shall then install the candidate nominated by the female name holders of his family. 1. It shall be the duty of all of the Five Nations Confederate Lords, from time to time as occasion demands, to act as mentors and spiritual guides of their people and remind them of their Creator's will and words. They shall say, "Hearken, that peace may continue unto future days. Always listen to the words of the great Creator, for he has spoken. United people, let not evil find lodging in your minds. For the great Creator has spoken, and the cause of peace shall not become old. The cause of peace shall not die if you remember the great Creator." Every Confederate Lord shall speak words such as these to promote peace. 1. All Lords of the Five Nations Confederacy must be honest in all things. They must not idle or gossip, but be men possessing those honourable qualities that make true Royan. It shall be a serious wrong for anyone to lead a lord into trivial affairs, for the people must ever hold their lords high in estimation out of respect to their honourable positions. 1. When a candidate lord is to be installed, he shall furnish 4 strings of shells, or wampum, 1 span in length bound together at one end. Such will constitute the evidence of his pledge to the Confederate Lords that he will live according to the Constitution of the Great Peace and exercise justice in all affairs. When the pledge is furnished, the Speaker of the Council must hold the shell strings in his hand and address the opposite side of the council fire, and he shall commence his address saying, "Now behold him. He has now become a Confederate Lord. See how splendid he looks." An address may then follow. At the end of it he shall send the bunch of shell strings to the opposite side, and they shall be received as evidence of the pledge. Then shall the opposite side say, "We now do crown you with the sacred emblem of the deer's antlers, the emblem of your lordship. You shall now become a mentor of the people of the 5 nations. The thickness of your skin shall be 7 spans, which is to say that you shall be proof against anger, offensive actions, and criticism. Your heart shall be filled with peace and goodwill, and your mind filled with a yearning for the welfare of the people of the Confederacy. With endless patience you shall carry out your duty, and your firmness shall be tempered with tenderness for your people. Neither anger nor fury shall find lodgment in your mind, and all your words and actions shall be marked with calm deliberation. In all of your deliberations in the Confederate Council, in your efforts at lawmaking, in all your official acts, self-interest shall be cast into oblivion. Cast not over your shoulder behind you the warnings of the nephews and nieces should they chide you for any error or wrong you may do, but return to the way of the great law, which is just and right. Look and listen for the welfare of the whole people, and have always in view not only the present, but also the coming generations, even those whose faces are yet beneath the surface of the ground, the unborn of the future nation. 1. When a lordship title is to be conferred, the candidate lord shall furnish the cooked venison, the cornbread and the corn soup together with other necessary things and the labour for the conferring of titles festival. 1. The Lords of the Confederacy may confer the lordship title upon a candidate whenever the great law is recited, if there be a candidate, for the great law speaks all the rules. 1. If a Lord of the Confederacy should become seriously ill and be thought near death, the women who are heirs of his title shall go to his house and lift his crown of deer antlers, the emblem of his lordship, and place them at one side. If the Creator spares him, and he rises from his bed of sickness, he may rise with the antlers on his brow. The following words shall be used to temporarily remove the antlers. Now, our comrade lord, or our relative lord, the time has come when we must approach you in your illness. We remove for a time the deer's antlers from your brow. We remove the emblem of your lordship title. The great law has decreed that no lord should end his life with the antlers on his brow. We therefore lay them aside in the room. If the Creator spares you and you recover from your illness, you shall rise from your bed with the antlers on your brow as before, and you shall resume your duties as Lord of the Confederacy, and you may labour again for the Confederate people. 1. If a Lord of the Confederacy should die while the Council of the 5 Nations is in session, the Council shall adjourn for 10 days. No Confederate Council shall sit within 10 days of the death of a Lord of the Confederacy. If the 3 brothers, the Mohawk, the Onondaga and the Seneca, should lose one of their lords by death, the younger brothers, the Oneida and the Cayuga, shall come to the surviving lords of the 3 brothers on the 10th day and console them. If the younger brothers lose one of their lords, then the 3 brothers shall come to them and console them. And the consolation shall be the reading of the contents of the 13 shell wampum strings of Iroquois. At the termination of this rite, a successor shall be appointed, to be appointed by the women heirs of the lordship title. If the women are not yet ready to place their nominee before the lords, the speaker shall say, "Come, let us go out." All shall leave the council or the place of gathering. The installation shall then wait until such a time as the women are ready. The speaker shall lead the way from the house by saying, "Let us depart to the edge of the woods and lie in waiting on our bellies. When the women title holders shall have chosen one of their sons, the Confederate Lords will assemble in two places, the younger brothers in one place and the three older brothers in another. The lords who are to console the mourning lords shall choose one of their number to sing the pacification hymn as they journey to the sorrowing lords. The singer shall lead the way, and the lords and the people shall follow. When they each the sorrowing lords, they shall hail the candidate lord and perform the rite of conferring the lordship title. 1. When a Confederate lord dies, the surviving relatives shall immediately dispatch a messenger, a member of another clan, to the lords in another locality. When the runner comes within hailing distance of the locality, he shall utter a sad wail, thus, "Qua-ah, qua-ah, qua-ah." The sound shall be repeated 3 times and again at intervals as many times as the distance may require. When the runner arrives at the settlement, the people shall assemble, and one must ask him the nature of his sad message. He shall then say, "Let us consider." Then he shall tell them of the death of the Lord. He shall deliver to them a string of shells, wampum, and say, "Here is the testimony, you have heard the message." He may then return home. It now becomes the duty of the lords of the locality to send runners to other localities, and each locality shall send other messengers until all lords are notified. Runners shall travel day and night. 1. If a lord dies and there is no candidate qualified for the office in the family of the women title holders, the lords of the nation shall give the title into the hands of a sister family in the clan until such a time as the original family produces a candidate, when the title shall be restored to the rightful owners. No lordship title may be carried into the grave. The lords of the Confederacy may dispossess a dead lord of his title even at the grave. Election of Pine Tree Chiefs 1. Should any man of the nation assist with special ability or show great interest in the affairs of the nation, if he proves himself wise, honest, and worthy of confidence, the Confederate Lords may elect him to a seat with them, and he may sit in the Confederate Council. He shall be proclaimed a pine tree sprung up for the nation, and shall be installed as such at the next assembly for the installation of lords. Should he ever do anything contrary to the rules of the Great Peace, he may not be deposed from office, no one shall cut him down. But thereafter everyone shall be deaf to his voice and his advice. Should he resign his seat and title, no one shall prevent him. A pine tree chief has no authority to name a successor, nor is his title hereditary. Names, duties, and rights of war chiefs. 1. The title names of the chief Confederate Lords war chief shall be Iroquois, war chief under Lord Takari Hokan, Mohawk; Kahonwa Dirun, war chief under Lord Odatsheda; Oneida Allendes, war chief under Lord Adodarho Onondaga Lords, war chief under Lord Dekanawidah, Cayuga; Shonaradawane, war chief under Lord Scanyadario, Seneca. The women heirs of each head lord's title shall be the heirs of the war chief's title of their respective lord. The war chief shall be selected from the eligible sons of the female families holding the head lordship titles. 1. There shall be one war chief for each nation, and their duties shall be to carry messages for their lords and to take up the arms of war in case of emergency. They shall not participate in the proceedings of the Confederate Council, but shall watch its progress, and in case of an erroneous action by a lord, they shall receive the complaints of the people and convey the warnings of the women to him. The people who wish to convey messages to the lords in the Confederate Council shall do so through the war chief of their nation. It shall ever be his duty to lay the cases, questions, and propositions of the people before the Confederate Council. 1. When a war chief dies, another shall be installed by the same right as that by which a lord is installed. 2. If a war chief acts contrary to instructions or against the provisions of the laws of the Great Peace, doing so in the capacity of his office, he shall be deposed by his women relatives and by his men relatives. Either the women or the men alone or jointly may act in such a case. The women title holders shall then choose another candidate. 1. When the Lords of the Confederacy take occasion to dispatch a messenger in behalf of the Confederate Council, they shall wrap up any matter they may send and instruct the messenger to remember his errand, to turn not aside but to proceed faithfully to his destination and deliver his message according to every instruction. 1. If a message borne by a runner is the warning of an invasion, he shall whoop "Kwa-ah, kwa-ah" twice and repeat at short intervals, then again at a longer interval. If a human being is found dead, the finder shall not touch the body, but return home immediately shouting at short intervals, "Kuwe!" Clans and consanguinity 1. Among the Five Nations and their posterity, there shall be the following original clans: Great Name Bearer, Ancient Name Bearer, Great Bear, Ancient Bear, Turtle, Painted Turtle, Standing Rock, Large Plover, Deer, Pigeon Hawk, Eel, Ball, Opposite Side of the Hand, and Wild Potatoes. These clans, distributed through their respective nations, shall be the sole owners and holders of the soil of the country, and in them is it vested as a birthright. 1. People of the Five Nations. Members of a certain clan shall recognize every other member of that clan, irrespective of the nation, as relatives. Men and women, therefore, members of the same clan, are forbidden to marry. 1. The lineal descent of the people of the Five Nations shall run in the female line. Women shall be considered the progenitors of the nation. They shall own the land and the soil. Men and women shall follow the status of the mother. 1. The women heirs of the Confederate Lordship Titles shall be called Royane, noble, for all time to come. 1. The women of the 48, now 50 Royane families shall be the heirs of the authorized names for all time to come. When an infant of the Five Nations is given an authorized name at the Midwinter Festival or at the Ripe Corn Festival, one in the cousinhood of which the infant is a member shall be appointed a speaker. He shall then announce to the opposite cousinhood the names of the father and the mother of the child, together with the clan of the mother. Then the speaker shall announce the child's name twice. The uncle of the child shall then take the child in his arms and, walking up and down the room, shall sing, "My head is firm, I am of the Confederacy." As he sings, the opposite cousinhood shall respond by chanting, "Hyen, hyen, hyen, hyen," until the song is ended. 1. If the female heirs of a Confederate Lord's title become extinct, the title right shall be given by the Lords of the Confederacy to the sister family, whom they shall elect, and that family shall hold the name and transmit it to their female heirs. But they shall not appoint any of their sons as a candidate for a title until all the eligible men of the former family shall have died or otherwise have become ineligible. 1. If all the heirs of a lordship title become extinct and all the families in the clan, then the title shall be given by the Lords of the Confederacy to the family in a sister clan whom they shall elect. 1. If any of the Royana women, heirs of a titleship, shall wilfully withhold a lordship or other title and refuse to bestow it, or if such heirs abandon, forsake, or despise their heritage, then shall such women be deemed buried and their family extinct. The titleship shall then revert to a sister family or clan upon application and complaint. The Lords of the Confederacy shall elect the family or clan which shall in future hold the title. 1. The Royana women of the Confederacy, heirs of the Lordship Titles, shall elect 2 women of their family as cooks for the Lord, when the people shall assemble at his house for business or other purposes. It is not good nor honourable for a Confederate Lord to allow his people, whom he has called, to go hungry. 1. When a Lord holds a conference in his home, his wife, if she wishes, may prepare the food for the Union Lords who assemble with him. This is an honourable right which she may exercise and an expression of her esteem. 1. The Royana women, heirs of the lordship titles, shall, should it be necessary, correct and admonish the holders of their titles. Those only who attend the council may do this, and those who do not shall not object to what has been said nor strive to undo the action. 1. When the Royana women, holders of a lordship title, select one of their sons as a candidate, they shall select one who is trustworthy, of good character, of honest disposition, one who manages his own affairs, supports his own family, if any, and who has proven a faithful man to his nation. 1. When a lordship title becomes vacant through death or other cause, the Royana women of the clan in which the title is hereditary shall hold a council and shall choose one from among their sons to fill the office made vacant. Such a candidate shall not be the father of any Confederate lord. If the choice is unanimous, the name is referred to the men relatives of the clan. If they should disapprove, it shall be their duty to select a candidate from among their own number. If then the men and women are unable to decide which of the two candidates shall be named, then the matter shall be referred to the Confederate Lords in the clan. They shall decide which candidate shall be named. If the men and the women agree to a candidate, his name shall be referred to the sister clans for confirmation. If the sister clans confirm the choice, they shall refer their action to their Confederate Lords, who shall ratify the choice and present it to their cousin lords. And if the cousin lords confirm the name, then the candidate shall be installed by the proper ceremony for the conferring of Lordship Titles. Official Symbolism 1. A large bunch of shell strings, in the making of which the Five Nations Confederate Lords have equally contributed, shall symbolize the completeness of the Union and certify the pledge of the nations represented by the Confederate Lords of the Mohawk, the Oneida, the Onondaga, the Cayuga, and the Seneca, that all are united and formed into one body or union called the Union of the Great Law, which they have established. A bunch of shell strings is to be the symbol of the council fire of the Five Nations Confederacy, and the Lord whom the Council of Firekeepers shall appoint to speak for them in opening the council shall hold the strands of shells in his hands when speaking. When he finishes speaking, he shall deposit the strings on an elevated place or pole, so that all the assembled lords and the people may see it, and know that the council is open and in progress. When the council adjourns, the lord who has been appointed by his comrade lords to close it shall take the strands of shells in his hands and address the assembled lords. Thus will the council adjourn until such time and place as appointed by the council. Then shall the shell strings be placed in a place for safekeeping. Every 5 years the Five Nations Confederate Lords and the people shall assemble together and shall ask one another if their minds are still in the same spirit of unity for the great binding law, and if any of the Five Nations shall not pledge continuance and steadfastness to the pledge of unity. Then the great binding law shall dissolve. 1. 5 strings of shell tied together as one shall represent the Five Nations. Each string shall represent one territory, and the whole a completely united territory known as the Five Nations Confederate Territory. 1. 5 arrows shall be bound together very strong, and each arrow shall represent one nation. As the 5 arrows are strongly bound, this shall symbolize the complete union of the nations. Thus are the Five Nations united completely and enfolded together, united into one head, one body, and one mind. Therefore they shall labour, legislate, and counsel together for the interest of future generations. The lords of the Confederacy shall eat together from one bowl the feast of cooked beaver's tail. While they are eating, they are to use no sharp utensils, for if they should, they might accidentally cut one another, and bloodshed would follow. All measures must be taken to prevent the spilling of blood in any way. 1. There are now the Five Nations Confederate Lords standing with joined hands in a circle. This signifies and provides that should any one of the Confederate Lords leave the council, and this confederacy his crown of deer's horns, the emblem of his lordship title, together with his birthright, shall lodge on the arms of the Union Lords whose hands are so joined. He forfeits his title and the crown falls from his brow, but it shall remain in the Confederacy. A further meaning of this is that if any time any one of the Confederate Lords choose to submit to the law of a foreign people, he is no longer in but out of the Confederacy, and persons of this class shall be called, they have alienated themselves. Likewise, such persons who submit to laws of foreign nations shall forfeit all birthrights and claims on the Five Nations Confederacy and territory. You, the Five Nations Confederate Lords, be firm, so that if a tree falls on your joined arms, it shall not separate or weaken your hold. So shall the strength of the Union be preserved. 1. A bunch of wampum shells on strings, 3 spans of the hand in length, the upper half of the bunch being white and the lower half black, and formed from equal contributions of the men of the Five Nations, shall be a token that the men have combined themselves into one head, one body, and one thought. And it shall also symbolize their ratification of the peace pact of the Confederacy, whereby the lords of the Five Nations have established the Great Peace. The white portion of the shell strings represent the women and the black portion the men. The black portion, furthermore, is a token of power and authority vested in the men of the Five Nations. This string of wampum vests the people with the right to correct their erring lords. In case a part or all the lords pursue a course not vouched for by the people and heed not the third warning of their women relatives, then the matter shall be taken to the General Council of the Women of the Five Nations. If the lords notified and warned 3 times fail to heed, then the case falls into the hands of the men of the Five Nations. The war chiefs shall then, by right of such power and authority, enter the open council to warn the lord or lords to return from the wrong course. If the lords heed the warning, they shall say, "We will reply tomorrow." If then an answer is returned in favour of justice and in accord with this great law, then the lords shall individually pledge themselves again by again furnishing the necessary shells for the pledge. Then shall the war chief or chiefs exhort the lords, urging them to be just and true. Should it happen that the lords refuse to heed the third warning, then 2 courses are open. Either the men may decide in their council to depose the lord or lords or to club them to death with war clubs. Should they in their council decide to take the first course, the war chief shall address the lord or lords, saying, "Since you, the lords of the Five Nations, have refused to return to the procedure of the Constitution, we now declare your seats vacant. We take off your horns, the token of your lordship, and others shall be chosen and installed in your seats. Therefore, vacate your seats." 1. A broad dark belt of wampum of 38 rows, having a white heart in the centre, on either side of which are 2 white squares, all connected with the heart by white rows of beads, shall be the emblem of the unity of the Five Nations. Note: this is the Hiawatha belt, now in the Congressional Library. The first of the squares on the left represents the Mohawk Nation and its territory. The second square on the left, and the one near the heart, represents the Oneida Nation and its territory. The white heart in the middle represents the Onondaga Nation and its territory, and it also means that the heart of the Five Nations is single in its loyalty to the Great Peace, that the Great Peace is lodged in the heart, meaning the Onondaga Lords, and that the council fire is to burn there for the Five Nations. And further, it means that the authority is given to advance the cause of peace, whereby hostile nations out of the Confederacy shall cease warfare. The white square to the right of the heart represents the Cayuga Nation and its territory, and the fourth and last white square represents the Seneca Nation and its territory. White shall here symbolize that no evil or jealous thoughts shall creep into the minds of the lords while in council under the Great Peace. White, the emblem of peace, love, charity, and equity, surrounds and guards the Five Nations. Portions deleted. Laws of Adoption 1. Should any member of the Five Nations, a family or person belonging to a foreign nation, submit a proposal for adoption into a clan of one of the Five Nations, he or they shall furnish a string of shells, a span in length, as a pledge to the clan into which he or they wish to be adopted. The lords of the nation shall then consider the proposal and submit a decision. 1. Any member of the Five Nations who, through esteem or other feeling, wishes to adopt an individual, a family or number of families, may offer adoption to him or them, and if accepted, the matter shall be brought to the attention of the lords for confirmation, and the lords must confirm adoption. Laws of Emigration 1. When any person or family belonging to the Five Nations desires to abandon their birth nation and the territory of the Five Nations, they shall inform the lords of their nation, and the Confederate Council of the Five Nations shall take cognizance of it. Rights of Foreign Nations 1. The soil of the earth from one end of the land to the other is the property of the people who inhabit it. By birthright, the Ongwehonwe, original beings, are the owners of the soil which they own and occupy, and none other may hold it. The same law has been held from the oldest times. The great Creator has made us of the one blood and of the same soil he made us, and as only different tongues constitute different nations, he established different hunting grounds and territories and made boundary lines between them. 1. When any alien nation or individual is admitted into the Five Nations, the admission shall be understood only to be a temporary one. Should the person or nation create loss, do wrong, or cause suffering of any kind to endanger the peace of the Confederacy, the Confederate Lords shall order one of their war chiefs to reprimand him or them. And if a similar offence is again committed, the offending party or parties shall be expelled from the territory of the Five United Nations. 1. When a member of an alien nation comes to the territory of the Five Nations and seeks refuge and permanent residence, the lords of the nation to which he comes shall extend hospitality and make him a member of the nation. Then shall he be accorded equal rights and privileges in all matters except as after mentioned. Portions deleted. Rights and powers of war 1. Scanawati shall be vested with a double office, duty, and with double authority. One half of his being shall hold the lordship title, and the other half shall hold the title of war chief. In the event of war, he shall notify the 5 war chiefs of the Confederacy and command them to prepare for war and have their men ready at the appointed time and place for engagement with the enemy of the Great Peace. 1. When the Confederate Council of the Five Nations has for its object the establishment of the Great Peace among the people of an outside nation, and that nation refuses to accept the Great Peace, then by such refusal they bring a declaration of war upon themselves from the Five Nations. Then shall the Five Nations seek to establish the Great Peace by a conquest of the rebellious nation. 1. When the men of the Five Nations, now called forth to become warriors, are ready for battle with an obstinate opposing nation that has refused to accept the Great Peace, then one of the 5 war chiefs shall be chosen by the warriors of the Five Nations to lead the army into battle. It shall be the duty of the war chief so chosen to come before his warriors and address them. His aim shall be to impress upon them the necessity of good behavior and strict obedience to all the commands of the war chiefs. He shall deliver an oration exhorting them with great zeal to be brave and courageous and never to be guilty of cowardice. At the conclusion of his oration, he shall march forward and commence the war song, and he shall sing, "Now I am greatly surprised, and therefore I shall use it, the power of my war song. I am of the Five Nations, and I shall make supplication to the Almighty Creator. He has furnished this army. My warriors shall be mighty in the strength of the Creator. Between him and my song they are. For it was he who gave the song, this war song that I sing, portions deleted. Rights of the people of the Five Nations 1. Whenever a specially important matter or a great emergency is presented before the Confederate Council, and the nature of the matter affects the entire body of the Five Nations, threatening their utter ruin, then the Lords of the Confederacy must submit the matter to the decision of their people, and the decision of the people shall affect the decision of the Confederate Council. This decision shall be a confirmation of the voice of the people. 1. The men of every clan of the Five Nations shall have a council fire ever burning in readiness for a council of the clan. When it seems necessary for a council to be held to discuss the welfare of the clans, then the men may gather about the fire. This council shall have the same rights as the council of the women. Portions deleted. Religious ceremonies protected 1. The rites and festivals of each nation shall remain undisturbed and shall continue as before because they were given by the people of old times as useful and necessary for the good of men. 1. It shall be the duty of the lords of each brotherhood to confer at the approach of the time of the midwinter Thanksgiving and to notify their people of the approaching festival. They shall hold a council over the matter and arrange its details and begin the Thanksgiving 5 days after the moon of Disconnar is new. The people shall assemble at the appointed place, and the nephews shall notify the people of the time and place. From the beginning to the end, the Lord shall preside over the Thanksgiving and address the people from time to time. 1. It shall be the duty of the appointed managers of the Thanksgiving festivals to do all that is needed for carrying out the duties of the occasions. The recognized festivals of Thanksgiving shall be the Midwinter Thanksgiving, the Maple or Sugar-making Thanksgiving, The raspberry Thanksgiving, the strawberry Thanksgiving, the corn planting Thanksgiving, the corn hoeing Thanksgiving, the little festival of green corn, the great festival of ripe corn, and the complete Thanksgiving for the harvest. Each nation's festivals shall be held in their long houses. 1. When the Thanksgiving for the green corn comes, the special managers, both the men and women, shall give it careful attention and do their duties properly. 1. When the ripe corn Thanksgiving is celebrated, the lords of the nation must give it the same attention as they give to the midwinter Thanksgiving. 1. Whenever any man proves himself by his good life and his knowledge of good things, naturally fitted as a teacher of good things, he shall be recognized by the lords as a teacher of peace and religion, and the people shall hear him. The Installation Song 1, the song used in installing the new Lord of the Confederacy, shall be sung by Adudarho, and it shall be Hai Hai Agwa Wiyo, Akon Hiwatha, Skawe Yise Go Wa, Yon Gwawi, Yakon Hiwatha Hai, Hai, it is good indeed. That a broom, a great wing, it is given me, for a sweeping instrument. Protection of the House 1. A certain sign shall be known to all the people of the Five Nations, which shall denote that the owner or occupant of a house is absent. A stick or pole in a slanting or leaning position shall indicate this and be the sign. Every person not entitled to enter the house by right of living within it, upon seeing such a sign, shall not approach the house either by day or by night, but shall keep as far away as his business will permit. Funeral Addresses 1. At the funeral of a Lord of the Confederacy, say, "Now we become reconciled as you start away. You were once a Lord of the Five Nations Confederacy, and the United People trusted you. Now we release you, for it is true that it is no longer possible for us to walk about together on the earth. Now therefore we lay it, the body, here. Here we lay it away. Now then, we say to you, persevere onward to the place where the Creator dwells in peace. Let not the things of the earth hinder you. Let nothing that transpired while yet you lived hinder you. In hunting you once took delight. In the game of lacrosse you once took delight, and in the feasts and pleasant occasions your mind was amused. But now do not allow thoughts of these things to give you trouble. Let not your relatives hinder you, and also let not your friends and associates trouble your mind. Regard none of these things." Portions deleted.